Hello friends, welcome to our channel LNC Pro. In this video we will discuss about the syllabus of paper number 7 of CS Professional Program, and that is corporate funding and listing in stock exchange. Well, as we all know that a company secretary can either do service in the industry or he can either do his own practice. In both the cases, there are wide number of areas where he can work, like tax, audit, compliance, corporate restructuring, etc. One such area is corporate funding. If we look at the CS professional course, each subject is designed to cover a particular area, or in other words, we can say that to cover a particular area, a particular subject has been designed. The subject corporate funding and listing on the stock exchange is also designed in such a way so as to enable a company secretary to be proficient in the field of corporate funding and manage the entire end-to-end process of funding and listing for a company. Obviously, as a company secretary, you're not going to do any kind of financial analysis like which source of fund is beneficial for the company, or company should go for equity or debt for financing a particular project. All that work is the responsibility of finance department of your organization, and you need not worry about that. What you are going to do is to manage the process flow of funding. That means once the management takes a decision for funding, then you have to take the project forward. You have to initiate the process of funding. You have to meet the compliance requirement, and you have to manage the entire process flow. The subject corporate funding and listing on stock exchange is divided into two parts or two sections. One is corporate funding and second is listing with stock exchanges. The subject mainly deals with various types of sources of funding and related requirements of compliance thereof. Although listing is a part of corporate funding only, but in our syllabus, it is covered as a separate section because listing itself is a complex area to deal with. So if we talk about corporate funding, this simply means raising of funds. We can classify the funds into two parts. One is domestic or Indian funds, and second is foreign funds. Indian funds mean the party who is giving the funds to us is situated in India, and foreign funds means the party who is giving the funds to us is situated outside India. It is immaterial that in which currency we are receiving the funds. What matters is the source of funds. We may receive the funds from an Indian source in foreign currency, and yet the funding would be classified as Indian funding. Similarly, we may receive the funds from a foreign party in Indian currency, and yet the funding would be classified as foreign funding. Now we can classify the Indian funds into 5 parts. First is equity, second debt, third preference, fourth special purpose vehicle, and fifth other borrowing tools. If we talk about equity, then we can further classify it into 2. Fund based and non-fund based. Similarly, debt also we can further classify it into fund based and non-fund based. Fund based means there is actual funds infused in the company immediately, and non-fund based funding means actual funds are not infused in the company. And cash flows are contingent on happening of a certain event. Example of equity fund-based sources are public issues and private placement of shares where company receives either cash or non-cash consideration. Example of equity non-fund-based sources are bonus issues and sweat equity issues where company does not receive any consideration. Similarly, example of fund-based debt funding is bank loan, commercial papers, and non-fund based debt funding is bank guarantee and letter of credit. Now if we talk about fund-based equity sources, then we can further classify it based on counterparty. That means it can either be private or public. Private equity means shares are issued to specific group of people. Public equity means shares are issued to general public. And similarly, fund-based debt sources can also be classified based on counterparty. It can be either corporate debt where funds are obtained from public or private parties, or it can be government or bank debt where funds are obtained from government and banks. In non-fund based sources, we need not further classify as these sources are unique. Now, if we talk about special purpose vehicle, we will discuss about it in detail when we take it into our regular chapter. But for the time being, just remember that special purpose vehicle is a source of funding where a company procures the funds through a trust or subsidiary specifically formed with the purpose of funding the company. We can classify SPV into three parts. One is real estate investment trust, second is infrastructure investment trust, and third is securitization. We will discuss about all these three during our regular sessions. So this is the entire syllabus of first section, corporate funding. Now if we move to second section, listing in stock exchange, then we can again say that listing can be done on either Indian stock exchange or it can be done on international stock exchange. In our syllabus, we will read about both these things. In particular, in Indian listing, we will read about legal framework, preparation for listing, and documentation for listing. In international listing, we will read mainly about legal framework only. So, this is the entire syllabus that you can see on the screen. Now, we will talk about things which you need to focus at the time of reading of corporate funding. There are total 8 things which you need to take care of so that you're not confused in two different types of funding. First aspect of funding is country. You need to know whether funds are being procured from a party in India or from a party in foreign. Then second aspect of funding is knowledge of currency. You need to know whether raising of funds in local currency or foreign currency. Then the third aspect of funding is nature of funding. Is it equity or is it preference or is it debt? That you must know. This is important because equity holders become the owners whereas debt financiers are creditors. Now fourth aspect of funding is type of funding. It is fund based or is it non-fund based? That means whether actual cash flow is happening immediately or whether cash flow is contingent upon specific circumstances. Now fifth aspect of funding is document involved in funding. Is it a security which is issued by receiver of funds to providers of funds, or is it an agreement executed between both the parties? If it is agreement, then whether it is a shareholders agreement or is it loan agreement or any other type of agreement. If it is a security, then whether is it a primary market security or a secondary market security. Then sixth aspect of funding is counterparty involved in funding. Is it public or is it a private party? Or is it government or is it a bank? Then seventh aspect of funding is term of funding. Is it perpetual or non-perpetual? If it is non-perpetual, then it is long term or medium term or short term. That also we have to know. Then eighth aspect of funding is security. Whether you have given any security to procure the funds or the funding is unsecured. So there are basically mainly 8 aspects. There may be several other aspects such as laws applicable on each kind of funding, etc. But these are the major ones. You need to check all these aspects for each kind of funding, and all these aspects are independent of each other. That means answer of one aspect of funding is not dependent upon the answer of another aspect of funding. Let's see these aspects. If you're clear on these, then the whole syllabus is going to be easy for you. Now if we talk about overall about the book and look at other aspects of the subject such as difficulty, length, complexity, then we need to be a little careful. Even though the subject is not very much complex, let me be very clear from the first class that it is professional program. So you need to be prepared for the tough challenges. Even if a particular topic is easy, don't expect a comfortable question will come from in the exam from that topic, because the topic is easy. Tomorrow after becoming company secretary, you're going in the corporate world where you will have to manage both simple and complex things. So if you want to be ready for that, then you have to start from here itself without anticipating any relaxation or laxity. And for that, you need to give full attention in the classes. As far as length is concerned, content length is reasonable. So you need to cover end-to-end syllabus. You cannot leave a few topics and prepare selected topics on this level. This is professional level and not your primary or secondary class where you go with preparation of selected topics and come back happily. So keep a note of this point in your mind. Rest all is understandable. And if you focus attentively, you can score very good marks. You can keep a realistic target in the range of 60 plus because this is the subject which can fetch you good marks. So you need to be extra careful for that also. So that's all for this session. See you in the next class. Till then, goodbye. Thank you.